I'm going to read to you a true story about Smokey the Bear, one of my favorite stories. Well, when Smokey the Bear was a tiny, roly-poly little cub, he lived with his mother, as bear cubs do, in a cave that was very cozy to both of them. It was in a mountainy forest in the state of New Mexico. He didn't have a name, but he didn't need one. He knew when his mother called him, and he knew her call meant that he should come home. If he didn't answer, she would cuff him gently because she expected him to be a good little bear and mind. There were other bear cubs in the same forest. They all had the same lessons to learn: to mind when they were called, and to climb a tree whenever danger was around. But the lessons they liked best of all were about things to eat. They learned which berries were the tastiest and how to drink from a brook. They learned how to reach into a hollow tree for a paw full of beeswax and sweet dripping honeycomb, and how to outrun the bees. They learned how to turn over fallen logs to scoop up tasty bugs beneath, and they learned how to fish as they stood by a rock beside the stream. They learned to live with other animals too, for they were friends and neighbors. They were all around. There were the does, the gentle mother deer, their little baby fawns. The fawns, like the bear cubs, had to learn lessons too. Other woodland neighbors were the wildcats who lived in nearby rocky caves. At night, the wildcats crept silently through the forest, hunting for their food. There were lessons the wildcat kits had to learn too, of watching and waiting and timing their leaps. All the tricks to be a good hunter. In the branches above ran the chattering squirrels, busy in the jolly-sounding life of their own. They chattered noisily among themselves as they gathered stores of nuts. On the ground below and under the ground, in the whole world of tunnels and burrows and nests, lived the soft little rabbits and chipmunks and mice, diving out of sight at the sight of their dangerous friends. There were birds in the forest too. They often snatched berries just ahead of the bear cubs. The cubs came upon their nests, sometimes in climbing, and saw the hungry, squawking baby birds. The birds filled the forest with twittering and chirping as they built their nests and raised their young. They flew from branch to branch in search of food. So the forest was never silent. There was always the whisper of the pines, the chattering of the leafy trees. There was the bubbling brook. And there were all the little animal sounds, scurrying and scampering about. Well, Smokey knew that there was danger, too. The chirping and squeaking and twittering heard, but one day in the forest of New Mexico was alive with a sound. Every kind of animal, it seemed, was sounding a danger warning. Through the line of trees came a terrible, roaring and deafening sound in Smokey the Bear's ears. Then through the trees came a cloud of thick blackness that hurt Smokey the Bear's eyes. Smokey knew what his mother would tell him to do. When danger threatens, climb a tree. So up the tree Smokey went. Below him the animals were racing by, the does with their fawns, the wildcats with their kits, the rabbits and the mice, the chipmunks and their young. They were all trying to scurry along, and the birds flew by screaming as the flames were coming. Smokey just clung to his tree high up in the sky. All around him, the forest fire roared and crackled. Flames licked at Smokey's shaggy fur and singed his tender paws, but he closed his eyes and he clung tightly to the tree. When he opened his eyes again and looked around after the roaring had stopped, Smokey could scarcely believe his eyes. The fire had passed, but instead of the cool, dim, fragrant woods, all around him stood hundreds of ugly blackened sticks with smoke still curling up out of the ends. Smokey felt very lonely. He did not see another animal around, but soon he heard voices, and some strange big animals came tramping through the forest floor. They were men. Smokey had never seen a man before, but these men were forest rangers. They had just been working very hard putting out the fire in the woods where Smokey the Bear lived. "Well, look who's here," one ranger said, and he reached up and took that bear cub in his arms. "What's your name, fellow?" "Smokey?" And from that day on it was. Though Smokey could not understand the words, he knew the voice was kind. He knew the water felt good in his throat when he drank. And he knew that whatever the men were putting on his paws were making them feel better. So Smokey curled up in the ranger's arms and he went fast asleep. When he awoke, everything was strange again. He was in a box that was to be his bed. He went to the warden's house. He liked to sit with the game warden and his family and to play with the warden's little girl. But soon it was time to find a better home for Smokey, a home that was really planned for a bear. So off in a plane Smokey flew from New Mexico all the way to Washington, D.C. There was a nice home in the National Zoo where children came to see him every day. He had a whole set of new friends, new neighbors there. There were wild beasts and lions, leopards and kangaroos, and birds of every color. But even with his nice new home and friends, Smokey never forgot the forest far away with all of his friends and neighbors there. He never forgot the terrible day when they all had lost their homes. And Smokey wanted to do something about it so that it would never happen again. Now, all the time that he was thinking these thoughts, Smokey was growing up. He grew into a big, fine bear, and the bigger he grew, the more he wanted to do a good job and do a job with work to do. He remembered the firefighting forest rangers and how good they had been to him. Well, that's what I'd like to do, Smokey decided. I'd like to be a forest ranger. I'd like to fight forest fires all over the land. And I wouldn't wait to put them out. I'd fight them before they even started. So Smokey went off to the forest ranger. "I'd like a job," he said. And he told the forest ranger what he wanted to do. The forest ranger said, "Fine." "How do these fires start anyway?" Smokey asked. Well, the forest ranger told him a little story that many fires start with people being careless. Some people driving through the woods might throw matches out the window of their cars. Some people camping in the woods might leave some ashes burning when they leave in their fireplace, and it just takes a small bit of wind to blow that ash somewhere else and start a fire on the forest floor. Or people maybe living near the woods want to burn some leaves, some dead leaves, and they leave something burning on a windy day, and the wind just carries. All it needs is one burning ember to fly into the woods. and all of a sudden you can have a big fire. Well, that's terrible, said Smokey. What can I do? Well, you can get the boys and girls all over the land to help, said the forest rangers. Teach them safety rules to keep the forests green. Have them be junior forest rangers and teach their parents too. That's a fine and a big job for you to do. So when Smokey left the office, he wore his uniform and he's been helping to prevent forest fires ever since. He went back to tell his friends at the zoo, and there were bear cubs too. Everyone wanted to join in. So Smokey taught simple rules for keeping forests green. Everywhere, boys and girls listened to the rules, and they taught families. I will be careful with matches. I will be careful with campfires. I'll put my fire out and I won't leave one ash red. I'll be careful with all other fires. If I burn papers or leaves, I'll only do it when it's not windy, and I'll make sure to watch it all the time and make sure it's out completely before I leave. And I'll tell all the grown-ups, never leave anything burning on the ground unattended. Always be careful with fires. And that's the true story of Smokey the Bear. Now we're going to make a little origami bear head. This time, again, you can use any kind of paper. I'm going to use a paper bag. So this is a bag from any grocery store, and you can take one end and bring it to the other end, or actually you can make a square by just folding a paper bag any way you want. I'm just going to fold, I want a triangle, so I'm just going to fold it like this, and because I didn't fold it all the way to the end, I'm going to cut right around that triangle, and I'm still going to come out with a square. Okay, so anytime you make a nice even triangle, you come out with a square. You can just cut around it. I'm going to leave that folded in half like I did, one corner to one corner. Then I'm going to take it and fold it in half again. Corner to corner. Okay, so I took a triangle. Here's my triangle. I folded it in half again. Now I'm going to open it up and lay it down. And I'm going to take, and I'm just going to show you on this side, I'm going to take each point and I'm going to fold that in. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to fold it in about this much. I'm going to fold it down at an angle a little bit. And I'm going to take the other side and fold that over down at an angle. And then I'm going to take each of these flaps and fold it back out. These are going to become the ears. And I don't want pointy ears because he's a bear. I want little flat ears. So I'm going to take this triangle and just fold that down like this. Doesn't look like much from the back side, but when you turn it around, then I'm going to take each of these points and just fold those down a little bit. All right. Now I'm going to turn it over. All right, and you see when I turn it over, I have something that looks like a bear head. Now I'm going to take just the front part over here of the flap. I'm going to fold that up. And I'm going to take the point and fold that down behind. Okay, fold that up. And I'm going to take this bottom point and I'm just going to fold that back. And there I have my bear. Now I'll just take my marker and I'm going to draw 2 eyes. I'm going to give him nice big eyes. Color them in a little. And you can color your bear any color you want. You can make it out of a paper bag or any other kind of paper. Give him a long, big round nose. Color that in. And his mouth there. And there you have it. Now I have my bear face. I have my very own Smokey the Bear. Be careful with forest fires. Here's another one. And here's a little one, a little bear cub. So you can make them any size you want. Okay, so long till next time.